outside of the library, looking overall at the park's circulation and public pack access, and then construction of the dog run, as well as looking at different drainage issues.
Jonna, let's just back up for a minute. One of the reasons we discussed at, I guess, the ops meeting, of why we were going to do this presentation was because of the timing involved. Just to put the sequence of events, the architects have been working on this design for quite some time. We did have community involvement back when it was cold. I remember standing out in the cold and freezing. But because the current dog run in South Point, not South Point, in Riverwalk, is going to have to be closed down for the commencement of the building of Building 9. In order for us to get another park up and ready in time for dogs to have a place to go on the south end of the island. And we do not have a board meeting in the month of November. It was suggested that we would do this presentation because we're not going to be able to come to you in December, which would be the next board meeting, with the winning contractor for the construction of this dog run in time to get the dog run up and running when we have to close the other dog run because of Building 9. Therefore, it was suggested that perhaps we could do this presentation, show the board what is now included in the RFP. One of the bids expected to be submitted October 31st. And we have, for the new board members, we have in the past come to you for ratification in certain circumstances as opposed to seeking pre-approval. We try not to do that, but if in fact we want to have a dog run ready, this would require us to come to you for ratification at a later date. We didn't want to do that without presenting this to you now.
For the new board members, there have been a series of cases in the past where the emergency repairs had to be done that the corporation executed, actually without board permission. It exceeded the $50,000 cap, which it was at the time. So we had to ratify afterwards. We didn't always like that. There were other cases where major things were done that we found out afterwards, and we objected to that a bit, but it was already a done deal, so we could deal with it. In this case, they're trying to present something ahead of time, but they're not going to have the bids unless we want to have them volunteer for an emergency board meeting in November. They're looking to present what they believe is a reasonable cap of expenditures, so they can execute on the contract, and then they'll give us the final actual bid packages in December meeting.
We did receive, one of the things we get from our owner's representative, Lero, is an estimate, a detailed estimate of what they believe this should cost. So clearly, we use that as evidence of whether we're going to go forward with the bid or not, if it's consistent with that estimate. So I think with that said, why don't you?
Well, the other question for you is, when your final bids actually come back, at what level of buffer would you consider it within range and go ahead and execute? We can ratify, or at what point would you have to call an emergency board meeting?
I'm going to throw that over to our CFO, because in fact, we just had that situation with the Hope Memorial. You know, we had a bid, 2 bids. The winning bid, however, was in excess of our estimate. And so we're not moving forward right now on that.
It was a combination of the 2 bids we did receive.
John, I can't hear you. Sir, you have to, one, go to the podium, say who you are for the recording, and
We only received 2 bids.
Yeah, well, let's not, you know what, Gretchen just reminded us we're in a restricted period.
Yes,
on
we
that.
haven't given
So,
an
but John, don't go anywhere. With respect to Michael's question, Is there, do you have some guidance, guidelines that if we have an estimate from LIRO and we get a rating committee that approves or chooses a bid and it is not necessarily, is there a percentage that you look to for how close it is to that estimate?
You really don't look at it, that's that percentage, you just try to look, see, prepare the scope that's being bid, and then identify where on the scope you may have gaps or inconsistencies between what LIRO gave us and what was actually bid on. You can identify what those differences are, where those issues or gaps lay, then you can either reconcile them and say, make a business decision and say, we're gonna move that forward, or if you can't understand or you can't define where those gaps are, you basically have the option to call the bidders in, to talk to them and ask them to go through their assumptions and what they saw as far as the scope was, and how they defined the scope and bid on the scope that they thought was accurate.
Yeah, the main question is just from a governance standpoint, the board is going on faith, extending you guys the ability to complete a contract without the board's purview in the dollar range that's exceeding your ability to do so. So we have an estimate here. We're just wondering, like, if we I can't think of the directors how they vote, but if we give you approval for this, and then you go through your execution process in lieu of a November board meeting, and the results come back much higher, or somewhat a number of percentage higher, at what point will it be necessary, do you feel, that you would have to call an emergency board meeting to review it, or would you just, how much leeway are we giving you?
So I would defer to.
Well, Michael, if we could just clarify, the analysis is based on reasonableness.
Yes.
And in situations where we have an estimate from our owner's rep, we're expecting bids to come in around the same price point.
Yes.
To the extent that it's exceeding that price point, we will then go back to our owner's rep to review the bids itself to see where the discrepancies are, like John just described. In a situation where the amount that comes in is excessive, and again, I'm just throwing out numbers for argument's sake.
Right.
If our owner's rep says a project should be around $350,000, and we have a bid that comes in at $700,000, that would be considered excessive.
So in this situation, today, do you have a sense of what that amount is?
It's really from my perspective, it's a reasonable judgment perspective, and if I get into a situation where I'm anywhere from 5% or above, then it's in 5 to 10%, you're in that gray area that you say, you know what, I really have to think about this, let me look at where the differences are. If the differences are in a trade or in a material, I may be able to let it go. If it's sitting in profit, general conditions, profit and overhead, it may say, I need to bring this back to the board. If it's above 10%, just from an accounting perspective, just auditing and materiality perspective, I would say anything over 10%, no matter where it is, we have to bring it back to the board.
But again, and maybe you have this information, so today, and I think this is, fine, but today, we, the board, don't know what that amount is.
Well, Rich, can we mention the LIRO report?
Yes, we do have an estimate that was provided to us by our owner's rep, and
Why
I think
is
John
it
has
in
that
the
information.
And Jonna just brought up a good
Yeah,
point.
I see no document here to vote on, or to accept, or to do anything, except a sketch of a plan of where to put a dog line.
But we're not being asked to.
Ju-
Right, but
What are we asked to do?
What is the estimate?
Just the other point, and turn it back over to John, the other point is depending on the coverage you get with the bid, if you get one bidder or two bidders and you don't get a lot of coverage and there's a big gap between two bidders, that brings that variance down where we think we have to bring it back to the board quicker. If we get 5 or 6 bidders and all 5 or 6 bidders are in the same range, we get, as we say in the industry, we get good coverage on the bid. That gives you a sense that they're all within the numbers are pretty consistent.
But I guess what David and I are saying is, you're gonna go ahead and select,